Space, the final frontier. These are the podcasts of the Starfleet Night Shift, our continuing mission to discuss Strange New Worlds, TM, to review Star Trek in all its iterations, to boldly talk about Trek we've all seen before.
Before. Good job, Junie.
Thanks.
It's the Junie
echo
one.
technology. Welcome, everyone. This is your weekly dose of the Star Trek Night Shift. In case you're not familiar, this is a podcast where the three of us get together and basically do and talk about things that we would be doing if we weren't on Twitch streaming / podcasting, which is discuss all the things we're obsessed with about Star Trek and
All the things.
infinite topics in infinite diversity.
Oh, good. That was good.
I was trying to fit the C in there too.
Itix.
A lot of
Itic.
Nice one.
Conversations aren't actually all that complex. They're just fun.
What? Come on, this is the most complex fandom ever.
I mean, it really is. Although I still, deep down, don't understand how warp works.
Or transporters, am I right?
Listen, start already. It's too soon for this. It's too early.
It is. It's way too early. Welcome, everyone. My name is Captain America in the upper right-hand corner. Good to see you guys. It is Saturday again. Time for the podcast. Very excited to be here. Chief Jennifer in the upper left-hand corner. I almost said Junie. It was close, but not
Okay, you're
today.
getting better at it.
And you did.
I am getting better. And of course, the epic introduction from Science Officer Azure in the bottom right. You guys are amazing. Welcome to the Night Shift. So tonight, we're always kind of a mess. You know, we like to just sort of let the topics flow. Last week, we had a bunch of ideas in mind for what we were going to talk about. And instead, we had a duel to the death, complete with Lurpas and everything, about the treatment, the humanitarian violations, dare I say, against our good friend Tuvix. From Voyager. So if you guys missed that one, that's last week. It was a really good topic. Today, we've got a lot of really exciting stuff to cover. I'm glad you guys are here. Again, if anyone is here from the gaming stream, this is a Star Trek themed podcast. We're going to be talking a lot about all of our favorite franchise, Star Trek. So we're going to keep the topics on that specifically. If you guys are interested in this at all, please join our Discord. We've got a great community all about Star Trek. !ST Discord in the chat. We'll get you there to discord.gg/Star Trek Night Shift. So today, there's been... Oh, no, go ahead.
Before we dig in, I just want to give our obligatory, even though I know people will be dropping in and out throughout this, big spoiler alert for anything Star Trek related.
Absolutely.
Fair game.
Everything is fair game. That's absolutely true. So if you guys don't want to be spoiled about Star Trek, as sad as it makes me to say, change the channel. We don't want to spoil you. We would rather have you be a future Star Trek fan than be a viewer in the chat and ruin it for yourself. So for anybody who is watching this later, we do stream this on Twitch at twitch.tv/MerrickTV, and then we upload it later to our YouTube channel. I think our YouTube channel was just linked in chat by Junivision. If you guys would like to drop us a subscribe and smash that like button, write a comment. It all helps a lot if we manage to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube. We actually get like a vanity URL. We could be youtube.com/Star Trek Night Shift. That's the dream. That's the big goal right now. So,
And just a reminder that subscribing on YouTube is completely free. It's like a follow. So
It is.
There's that.
yes, very much appreciated. Okay, so we were looking over things this week. It's been a crazy, awesome week. In fact, it's the best time in the history of Star Trek ever to be doing a podcast about Star Trek because the news cycle is insane. There's so much being gossiped about. There's a lot happening around the corner every single week about what new show is going to happen, what new character is going to be brought back. We just said goodbye to Lower Decks last week for the season finale. The show is doing phenomenally. It will be back, of course, for next season, but we just wrapped that up. Star Trek Prodigy, the animated, the younger audience animated series, just picked up again this last Thursday. Let's see, 2 days ago Thursday was the second episode of the second half of the first season. And that's Nickelodeon, but it is still on Paramount Plus. So definitely check that out. So there's a lot going on. A lot of characters are being reprised. Star Trek Picard is being teased. That's February of next year, just around the corner. And there's a lot of people coming back for that season. If you guys haven't seen the trailer already, it is extremely exciting. Basically, the entire cast of The Next Generation is going to be coming back to reprise their roles in the season. The finale season, not the season finale, but the finale season of Star Trek Picard. Season 3 is, in fact, going to be the last season of the show. And so there's a lot of people that are coming back. We're going to see Michael Dorn as Worf, Marina Sirtis as Troy is coming back. We're getting Jonathan Frakes again, of course, as Riker, my absolute hero. We're getting Gates McFadden as Dr. Crusher. Basically, everybody is coming back. LeVar Burton as Geordi LaForge. All of our favorites are all going to be here. And it has actually kicked off this insane, I don't know what to call it, a movement, I guess, about all of the old school OG Star Trek actors having a precedent now to come back and reprise their roles. A lot of the people that have been in the sort of Star Trek circuit for many years now, who have been doing events about Star Trek, going to Comic-Cons, doing conventions, Star Trek cruises, all that kind of stuff. They're sort of in this Star Trek circuit that we all know and love. This franchise really takes care of the people that are in it. A lot of these actors have actually expressed desire and interest in coming back. Star Trek Picard really did sort of set that bar. So for a show to bring back an old school crew in a new setting and have it be, at least to some point, to some degree, successful. Season 3 is really looking to be a big, huge turnaround. We talked about a couple weeks ago that we're going to have Moriarty returning, which is absolutely incredible. A lot of big throwbacks. I think nostalgia is truly the name of the game at this point. So what we're going to talk about tonight is exactly that. Basically, the characters that have come back, what they've said about coming back, the characters that we would like to see come back, the giant movement that's happening to try to get Star Trek Janeway back on the screen, which is, of course, exactly what everyone wants, especially everyone in this stream here. I think we're all enormous fans of Kate Mulgrew and Janeway. We would like nothing more than to see that come back. And we came up with a pretty cool idea about how we would like to see another one of our very favorite Star Trek actors, Robert Picardo, the player, the actor that played the Doctor from Voyager. Probably, I don't know, I think Jennifer and Azure's maybe favorite Star Trek character? Is that saying too much?
Certainly up there in the top 3.
I was gonna say it's a tight race for number 1, but yeah, he's definitely near the top, and might actually be there for me, especially because as Merrick has continually teased me about the last couple of weeks we've done this podcast, I just rewatched all of Voyager.
Again. He just watched it like a month ago.
So good.
It is. It's so good. It is. So one of the greatest things that I've seen about this is that they're all excited to do it. That is, I think, the coolest thing in the world is that, I think when you watch these actors on these TV shows, it's a little bit of an obscure thing when you're growing up. You don't really realize how many other people are into Star Trek, but it is in essence a TV show, right? It's just a regular TV show, and to varying degrees, a lot of the actors, didn't become like multi-billion-dollar blockbuster movie stars, right? Like they've done great careers. All of them are phenomenal. We love them all. But I think what's really cool is that they've really stayed in a realm where they can appreciate Star Trek and everything that it meant to them, what it meant to their career, what it's meant to their lives, because it really isn't just a normal show, right? Star Trek is anything but. It's not just doing a gig and then leaving it. Like I said at the beginning of this, Star Trek really takes care of its own. If you play even not just a titular role, but if you even play a peripheral role on Star Trek, you can literally go to conventions for the rest of your life, and you can just live the life of a normal person at like 90% of your existence, and then a couple of times out of the year, go to conventions, go to cruises, go to events and Comic-Cons and whatever, and be an absolute celebrity, like an utter god walking among mere mortals. I mean, that's really what it is. The people that love Star Trek love it that much. And so it's so cool to hear all of our very favorite Trek actors speak about exactly how much that role has meant to them, how excited they would be to come back and play it again. I don't think I've seen anyone who's come back and be like, nah, you know what? Not interested. Like, we just haven't heard that. We don't see that. Even Patrick Stewart, Sir Patrick Stewart, who probably has led the greatest career in terms of, blockbuster viability of any Trek actor since, right? Would you guys say that's probably true? It's probably Patrick Stewart, right?
Anyone else as big as him.
Yeah, he did major movies, right? So even he has always been beloved by fans and his characters beloved by him. He's always gone to all the events, loved his role in Star Trek, and is happy to sort of reprise that. So we're going to go through a lot of sort of how that ends up panning out. But first of all, what would you guys think about a Star Trek coming back? Are you excited about the possibility of Kate Mulgrew reprising her role as Janeway? Is that the number one show that you would like to see come back? Is that the big return that you'd enjoy?
I'm gonna let Jennifer go first. Although I will mention Valhalla said to turn Azure up. I don't know if the chat agrees or not.
Oh yeah, I think.
Oh,
it's
everyone.
Turned up
It's
a little
everyone.
bit.
You're all fixed now. You guys are.
Oh,
fixed.
wonderful. Okay.
It's
Anyway,
a thing
I'll let
because when
Jennifer
I'm
go first.
streaming other things, I have to keep the chat lower. But here, I have to raise it up. Okay, Jennifer, what are you thinking?
Okay, so yeah, no, I think that would probably be the one that I am the most excited about. I also think that, you know, having Janeway come back, and I know we're going to talk about this, but I feel like having the Doctor come back is something that is so easy to do. We have so many ideas that even we've thought of for having him come back. One of which I don't know if we want to like mention it now yet.
We will get to it in a second. I have
Okay.
all of the details. I'm ready for this one because we're
So-
gonna pitch this.
So even, you know, there's so many ways to bring that character back. There's so many ways to bring the actor back. Being a hologram really opens that up. Being a hologram already opens that up even further. So yeah, no, I think that would be probably what I would be looking forward to the most. Would be something with Janeway or hologram Janeway like they're doing with Prodigy, and the Doctor, or one of the Doctor holograms.
Well, let's take a moment to acknowledge that that's true. So I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that if you guys haven't seen it already, the second half of the first season of Star Trek Prodigy, this sort of younger animation style Star Trek, actually is reprising a couple of our fan favorite roles, including Janeway, who up until the end of the first half of the first season was being played as a hologram. She is essentially a hologram on the ship, the Protostar, that a bunch of kids find that are not part of Star Trek. She teaches them what Starfleet is about, really builds up all of the great qualities that make up the Federation, inspire them to want to be better. It's a great show. It really is awesome. But at the end of that season, or the first half of the first season, which is what they released first, she actually comes back as actual Admiral Janeway, and I won't spoil that unnecessarily, but she's coming back in the second half of this season, along with Chakotay, which is, Beltran, which is awesome that they're bringing him back as well. I'm a huge fan. I think that this is going to be really exciting and clearly already paved the way for the return of Kate Mulgrew. She loves her role. In fact, they just unveiled the statue of her in Idaho.
Indiana.
I need to start with the I, which is actually where
that's
Janeway's
where
from.
Janeway's from.
It is, yeah. It was great because I watched that interview. It was great. She was talking with her fans. They made a big statue of her. They had a giant unveiling of it. She came for it. It was wonderful. She said that she's so much of that character is her. That she is so much of that character. She was driving to the event, driving through Indiana, looking at the houses, finding herself going like, yeah, like this feels like Janeway. Like, I wonder which of these houses would have been mine. You know what I mean? Like, she literally is that, and she loves it, and it's so cool. So she's already there, and she's going to be there even more soon.
And
what do you think, Azure? Do you think that it's the
Well,
time?
I just wanted to jump in because of the Prodigy note that you just made.
Both
Prodigy and, I guess in a sense, Lower Decks, because Quark and Kira got to be reprised there. They open up some really cool opportunities for these actors to reprise their roles, even if they look totally different because they've aged 20 or 30 years, right? Like,
yes.
your voice still generally sounds pretty similar. One, I'm totally fine with people reprising their roles as just older versions of themselves, but it's cool that Prodigy can bring back these characters and have them not have aged as much as they have in real life because it's animated and they can just lend their voice.
It's genius. And the same thing is true for Lower Decks. As you said, they got to bring back DS9. Now, remember the setting of Lower Decks. It literally is sandwiched in canon. It's 3 years after the return of Voyager. And I think Voyager ended and returned at 2378. So it's like 2381 is about when Lower Decks starts, which means that the people in DS9 would be older, but not that much older, right? Not like 30 years older or whatever it is.
Right.
So they did get to bypass that. We had Nana Visitor as Kira come back. We had Quark, Armin Shimmerman come back. There was was Lita in that one too? I don't remember.
I don't think so. I think it was
Rom?
just Nana and
Armin. Well, they're amazing, and they came back and did get to bypass, in essence, that entire aging problem. But I'm glad we brought that up because I definitely want to. We're going to talk a lot about the Doctor. Robert Picardo is one of our favorites, as I said, and he has expressed great interest in returning, even given some of his own ideas, and he himself addressed the data problem, as he called it, and is what we're going to call it, is the data problem, which is effectively that when Star Trek Picard Season 1 came out, Data, Brent Spiner, the actor Brent Spiner, did come back and reprise his role as Data, but they had, of course, a big issue. Not only are the timelines weird, because normally this should be bypassed with Star Trek Picard, right? Picard was actually set in the future at exactly the same time difference that was the end of TNG to now, 30-ish, 35-ish years later. So everyone had aged exactly the correct amount. Except for Data, who is an android and should not age at all. And they ran into this issue with several characters. Q and Data and Guinan, played by Whoopi Goldberg, should not have aged at all. And they had to address this problem in each case. I just want to go down the line with you guys. Do you think that they did that successfully? How do you think that they managed that?
I don't know. Data in Season 1 almost ended up like getting into pseudo Uncanny Valley territory for me, which is odd because he's not animated.
Ah, yes, okay. It was a little weird, right? So for those of you who don't know, in the beginning, they were doing flashbacks with Data. They were using Data, like new footage of Brent Spiner playing Data, and they used CGI to really try to smooth him out, which is essentially what they ended up doing. Now, Asher pointed that out, that it wasn't really spot on. He looked CGI, but more than that, I would say that Brent Spiner it's not just about aging the skin backwards. He just looks different. He's put on weight. He's a different frame. Data was very angular. You know, he was cast because of that. He had that face. And so now he's definitely a rounder faced older guy. He looks great. Don't get me wrong. Brent Spiner looks fabulous. In fact, they all do. They look so good for the age that they are and what they've gone through and what they've done and they're at this point in their careers. But
I mean, they've all aged more gracefully than I have. So
yeah, I'll give you that. Especially you, Wesley Crusher. What the heck? So I wanted to say that was a little rough, right? The Data thing, they had that issue. And now what was nice was that Brent Spiner came and actually, not only reprised his role as Data, but he actually picked up a couple of other roles, family of the Sung family kind of thing. He basically got to be himself a lot of that time, but Data did look a little bit different. What about you, Junie? Did you think that was done successfully?
I think the Q thing was done well. I like the kind of excuse that he gave. I think that was completely fine. And I think
agreed.
And I think Guinan also was fine because, her character did age, but she's kind of on a different timeline because of the species that she is. So, all of that I think was fine.
She's an El-Orion, and right. They are exceptionally long-lived. As you know, she had that episode with Mark Twain and looked the same age. They had to give an actual excuse. And it was probably the worst excuse that I'd ever heard. I really wish that there was some sort of better
what
time.
was the excuse they gave for her?
So
because I remember the one they gave for Q, and that made total sense because it's Q.
Q was amazingly tongue-in-cheek, so I'll get to that in a second. But what happened with Guinan was that she was on Earth that whole time basically, and she was like, people get old around me, so I thought I'd get old too. To make people feel better about being old. It was such a throwaway line. That's not really
a thing, right? That's not a way to do that.
No, and it certainly wasn't like there was any sort of grounds for how El-Orions could just decide to age or de-age themselves. It was very bizarre. It was a total throwaway. I understand that they really wanted Whoopi Goldberg. And they even did, they only showed her for a little bit, and then they brought in a younger actress to play younger Whoopi Goldberg. Or younger Guinan rather. That was all fine. That was all good. I thought that was okay. But like the I understand that they wanted her in it, and so they should. She literally is sort of royalty in this arena. But I thought that was a just pale comparison to what they did with Q, which was phenomenal.
It goofy that they needed an excuse for her to age. We don't know. Like maybe Elorians hit an age, and all of a sudden, physically, they just look a lot different. Like it's like the equivalent of like puberty, but for old age.
I'm trying to ask myself, checking with myself right now, if they would have given no reason. Would that have been better? And I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. I think that's probably true. I think I would like that better.
But I would have to actually like exist in that universe where they said nothing to really know how I'd feel. Because maybe I would be like confused.
Well, although they could have come up with a better thing, they could have decided to make something canon for Elorians and actually just made it a thing rather than sort of the half and half that they did.
Yeah, because we haven't actually seen that many Elorians.
We've seen like a bunch of nameless extras on the Enterprise B, the Enterprise B, right. And then we've also seen Guinan and Soren, and that's literally it. I think. Oh no, I'm sorry, and DS9. Oh god, what's his name?
I can't think of his name.
The luck gambler guy. Yeah, the gambler guy. Anybody in chat know what his name is? I forget his name, but yes, you're right. That's the other Elorian. So I agree. I think that we don't know enough information. We've been gone for 35 years. It would be completely reasonable to think that Guinan left, did something else, did a bunch of time traveling, came back later. I don't know. There's a billion things that they could have done to address it. I just felt like it was a cheap throwaway line to address it so that they could move on. But like, I would have either rather just ignore it completely or actually give it some credence. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I do agree though that they did Q so well. I loved Q throughout Picard.
I did too, and that introduction to him aging was the Q-est thing ever. And of course, Delancey nailed it because of course he does, right? Like he makes it such a Q event. He's like, oh man, look at you. So in case you guys don't know how that ended up happening, Q, John Delancey, has aged the same amount as everyone else. Just spoiler alert. In real life, he's also the same amount older, and he does look older. But they give him the data treatment. The very first scene, he walks in CG, right? Looks a lot younger. And he looks at Picard in that amazing John Delancey way where he just sort of like is teasing Patrick Stewart. Goes, oh man, shit, has it been that long? You look terrible. You look so much older. Like this hardly feels like our relationship is the same. Like, you know, let me fix that. Snap, and he does his snap thing and he makes himself older. And I mean, I'm performing this terribly. I am not an actor. I am certainly not John Delancey, but holy shit, does he nail it, man. It just feels great. I paused and rewound it and did it again just because it was fun to watch, because he made it fun to watch. So I thought that was really, really good. So varying degrees of success in that regard. Robert Picardo, who played the Doctor in Voyager, which is what we were going to get around to here, brought this up. Not only did he say that he wanted to come back, that he loves the character of the Doctor. In case you guys don't know that, he lives and breathes the Doctor, man. He's a big Star Trek fan. He loves his character. He does. What were you telling me, Azure? What does he do? He does like.
Oh, what are they called? He does like little short YouTube videos where he just does monologues or singing from Voyager.
From the scenes of Voyager.
I saw that.
Something. I'm looking it up right now because I can't remember. Something al fresco. Technobabble al fresco.
Technobabble al fresco. That is the greatest name ever for what that is, especially from who it is.
Yeah.
Which is so good. So he was, you know, it's no surprise that he would be interested in coming back. He loves his character. He's beloved by everyone. It would be such a phenomenal thing. And he, in an interview, in a recorded like video interview, he actually recounted some ideas for how this would go or could go, and ideas that he really liked, and ways to even address the data problem, right? Which is still true for him, because even if they had him come back for Star Trek Picard, and that is the correct amount of years that he should have aged, he, like Data, is an artificial life form, right? He's not an android, but he's a hologram. There's no reason for him to age. It would have to be addressed. It absolutely would have to be addressed. So his idea, or an idea that he loved, that he wanted to spitball and just sort of see like the comedy that could come out of it, was that somehow his character did the data treatment where he came back CG, right? Like looked younger for a minute, but was reactivated by Zimmerman, the actual Herman Zimmerman, who was the scientist that created the hologram in the first place, that modeled the hologram after himself. Now, he was like a curmudgeon-y, grumpy old bastard, right? Like he's the reason why the Doctor inherited such bad personality traits. His idea was that he was reactivated by Zimmerman, who is aged appropriately, right? In his 60s now at this point. And the Doctor would be in his, about 40 in terms of where he should be in age. And so he was saying like their dynamic was already hilarious in that other episode. Do you remember the episode, Azure, or the name of it? I don't remember.
One where he goes back to cure him?
Yeah, or like he's breaking down, right? And they load up his program to it's the first one. He loads up his program as like a
the diagnostic.
The diagnostic.
That one's early on. Kess is still in the series then.
Oh, you're right. Yes. And they actually have to decompile him. I was thinking the one where they
send him back to Earth to cure Zimmerman, but
oh my God, you're right. There's like a lot of precedence for this.
Between the two of them.
Yeah, because they bicker, right? They're both like grumpy bastards, and they basically bicker with each other. And he was saying that, how annoying would it be to like work on some important project, some sort of big significant goal, and be working like if you're 40 and you're working with an 18-year-old sassy version of yourself the whole time. It would be so frustrating. And in their case, it's the same thing, that he is in his 60s working with like a 40-year-old version of himself that looks much younger and much better and is kind of smarter in some ways. That banter would be hilarious, and that Zimmerman could then retaliatorily tweak his program to make him older, right? To like get him to look the same age. So that would be an interesting exchange. Would you guys think that that's a good way to do that?
I think that's an okay way to do that. I also think, though, that he could the Doctor's always making adjustments to his program. I mean, he does that on a regular basis throughout Voyager. He's always trying new subroutines, and he could just have decided, I want to know what it feels like to start to look older, and that's a completely reasonable, very easy option that doesn't have to be a whole big thing.
I was kind of thinking the same. Because if you remember, in the series finale of Voyager, he's married to a human woman.
That's correct.
And like maybe he decides he wants to age with her.
With her. Yeah, that's very true.
Stay looking identical.
Yeah, so he could just age with his wife.
Well, so, and we've tiptoed around it, but here's where it's actually a significant change and an advantage, the difference between him and Data. They're both artificial life forms, right? But Data is an android. He can't change, or like it would be a much bigger, weirder thing for him to change in appearance, right? We have to really address that. And why would he go out of his way to do that? In All Good Things, when we actually see Data in the future, he gave himself the white stripe, like the rogue stripe on his hair.
Oh yeah,
that was all
Looks
they
like
did.
A bloody skunk.
Yeah, exactly. That was his like housekeeper or whatever. He wanted to look more distinguished, and he wanted to look older, and that was his answer to doing it. Right? It's not like it's beyond his capabilities to alter his appearance. I guess he could if he wanted to, but that was literally all he had decided to do. The fact that the Doctor is a freaking hologram is perfect. We've seen him change his program, like Jenny said, a bunch of times. He's changed his program to his benefit and detriment. Right? We've seen this, like the precedent is there, so that would be really entertaining to watch. And it's true. I think the interaction with Zimmerman would actually be fun, but I don't think that that's even necessary as a plot device. I think it's true. I think there's a lot of reasons why he could age himself. Being married to somebody and aging with them is the perfect example, and he's a hologram. It would be really easy to make that change. So that would be nice. Are you guys ready to unpack our idea?
I'm very excited for this.
I'm very excited.
Okay, so wait. Venwick says, I could see the Doc deciding that he didn't want to look like all the other Doctors that are mining now. Oh my God. What a great point.
Oh, that's a great idea.
That's true. Like, you could see him too vain to actually change his face, right? He's not going to change the way he looks. He thinks he's very handsome. I mean, you hear him say it. And Robert Picardo, I mean, you are very handsome man. But absolutely, that makes perfect sense. Venwick, 10 out of 10, bro. That's very true.
He doesn't want to look like all the rest of them. That's such a good idea.
If you haven't heard this already, the Doctor's program was like one of many. He was just a standard issue medical hologram. And it turned out that his grumpy, curmudgeon-y personality was just considered to be too bad bedside manner, and they ended up scrapping the project and using all of those hollow matrices as like miners on like asteroids. So it was not a good look for him. He was very upset about that. Also, Valhalix, I didn't want to miss him. He said Captain Ben Sisko is something that he would love to come back. I am actually, we're going to talk about DS9 later, which is, of course, my favorite Star Trek and the one that I would love to come back more than anything. I actually kept it here just in case I needed to show it. I'm a Niner for life.
You have the hat, I assume, right here.
I do have the hat. This is the Deep Space Nine Niners. I don't know if you can see that. This is from one of the episodes. Deep Space Nine is my absolute favorite, so I've got a lot to say on that topic. We will get to that very soon. But Azure, Jennifer, and I have been spitballing an idea that we want to pitch for an reintroduction to Robert Picardo's Doctor into the Star Trek universe. We've actually given this some good thought. We've done some good solid math, and we've got some ideas. So spoilers ahead for Voyager and for Star Trek Discovery. This is going to be a different time frame, a different perspective on how to bring back the Doctor. Azure, did you want to introduce this, or did you want me to?
I would love to, but it was your idea. I just did some digging on dates for it.
No, that's good. So Jennifer and I were watching Voyager, and we came upon an episode, and we came up with this great idea, and we talked to Azure, who of course knew everything about it, and we actually dug up a bunch of stuff. So this is pretty exciting. But Azure, I think you should introduce our little pitch here.
Okay, well, here's the weird thing. I actually don't remember the name of the episode. I didn't write that down, apparently.
The episode is called Living Witness.
Yeah. So in this Voyager episode, Living Witness, the Doctor's sort of backup, I don't know what to call it, backup module.
Yeah, it was a backup.
Recovered in rubble, or in like historical like battle site. And he's activated, and he's interacting with a man on this planet who runs a museum. And they have recreated what they think their encounter with Voyager was like 700 years in the past. So Voyager takes place in like the 2370s. This means the Doctor has been reactivated somewhere around 3074. And he's sort of serves as, based on the episode name, a living witness to help these people figure out their history, which has been badly distorted. Like Voyager gets a really bad rap as a warship that like devastated this planet, taking sides in a war between the Kyrians and the Vaskans. I'm not going to get into all the details of the episode, but by the end, the Doctor has begun to encourage change alongside I forget the character's name, the character who runs this museum. And they're sort of becoming dedicated to figuring out the truth and resolving this, and not just sort of brushing it over. And it's incites some violence.
Sparks a civil war, basically.
Yeah. And then they jump even further into the future, where a woman is recounting that this interaction between the Doctor and the guy who runs the museum was what finally helped start to put the Kyrians and the Vaskans on the path to peace and resolution. And she says that the Doctor, after helping with all this, stayed on as the planet's surgical chancellor for many years. We don't know what that means.
That's the quote. Yeah, many years.
And that eventually he gets in a small craft and sets a course for the Alpha Quadrant because he wanted to, like, he had a desire for home. We don't know what many years is, but it has to be more than 6 years, because the woman at the very end mentions that the museum guy, I feel really bad that I didn't write this
he died 6 years later.
He died 6 years after the main events of the story. So,
and she says that first. She says he died 6 years later, and then the Chancellor stayed on for many years after that. Like, so, like, you know,
we're talking at least 3080, possibly way further. Well, for those of you who aren't familiar with Star Trek Discovery, this is a big-ish spoiler.
It is.
At the end of season 2, they take Discovery into the future. You can watch the show to find out why. Discovery jumps 930 years into the future from their, early. They were in like what 23.
2255 to 2259.
Okay.
Is Disco, and then they leap 930-ish years to 3188.
Yes, okay, 3180. I wrote down 3186, but whatever. Those are close enough. That means that the Doctor has somewhere around 100-ish years, potentially, depending on what many years means. Because for a hologram, many years could have meant hundreds. We don't know. But that would ruin our big reveal here. That means the Doctor has somewhere around 100 years to travel from this Kyrian/Vascan planet back to the Alpha Quadrant, and to arrive and interact with like modern season 3, season 4 Discovery people. And that was like, Jennifer and Merrick presented this to me one night, and I like lost my mind, getting so excited about the idea that, because like Robert Picardo could show up, I guess technically in any series, because of all the ways you could make up an excuse for the hologram to be kind of anywhere.
Absolutely
but
true.
How
Yeah.
cool would it be if he shows up in Discovery and just arrives in this little ship and doesn't know like all the changes that have happened, and he gets to integrate with the Discovery crew?
Oh, but and he also didn't skip all the intermediate time. He was there.
Oh, yeah, he's just existed.
Yeah, he
He
would have.
existed by himself in this
Like 1,000
other area.
years.
Well, and
as
could have
the
had a whole
backup.
adventure, man. I mean, like along the
Robert
way.
Picardo spinoff.
Yeah, there could be a whole spinoff about this, but he shows up with knowledge about the burn, right? And like how that happened and what happened to him. Like, how did he get there after the burn? Like, the fact that it was many years on the planet is actually a great advantage, right?
Oh,
Because
and
that actually
especially-
means that it's not tied down. We're not actually limited to the exact year. They could write that in to be exactly what it should be.
When from my recollection, they guessed that the burn happened somewhere in the late 31st century. I think the guess I saw online was like 3070, 3069.
3069 is what I got for the burn. Yes.
Which means he would have, you're right, he would have left after the burn happened. And frankly, we don't actually know. Like, everyone in Discovery says, oh, all the dilithium had this
Everywhere.
issue during the burn.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know that. They don't.
That's
they
true.
don't have regular contact with the Delta Quadrant for all we know. Like, maybe this world was fine.
Yeah, there's no way to know, but I think that this would be a cool way to sort of like get that information a little bit more clear. I mean, at least from his perspective, it would be really awesome. So just to recap, effectively, the episode of Voyager is that a copy of the Doctor wakes up 700 years later and basically has to recount everything that happened 700 years earlier. He knows they're all dead. He knows Voyager. He in fact, he laments it. He's like, oh man, like I wonder if my friends made it home. I don't know, but wherever they are, I hope that they're at home
Captain
buried,
Janeway would
like
be spinning in her grave.
yeah, he makes that comment, right? So he knows, like he's already having to acknowledge that they're all gone and dead, and then all he has to do is to try to defend the memory of his crew and family to this alien world that 700 years later has blamed them entirely for the civil war that they ended up having, which of course wasn't true. He eventually ends up clearing it up. It's all good, and he solves it. And at the very end of the episode, they fast forward several hundred years farther, and we end up finding out that he fixed it. Everything was great. He stayed on, and then he leaves to go back home, and it's like this big mystery. But Discovery ends up landing the farthest in the future that Star Trek has ever gone, the 32nd century. It is absolutely unwritten. We've never heard anything about it. They have free range to do anything they want. And from a Star Trek fan, I was so glad when Discovery left and went somewhere that they couldn't mess with
future.
continuity anymore. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I definitely was relieved when that was true. But here's a great way, like, that was the end. It was a giant question mark. We never hear anything about it again. There's a copy of Robert Picardo's Doctor floating through space somewhere at about the same time frame, right? I mean, we're let's see, like Voyager is, these are my dates, 2371 to 2378-ish. That's about where we're sitting. 3074 is the Living Witness episode. That's 700 years
too.
later. 2255 to 59-ish is Discovery. And then they leap 930 years to 3188. Now, if in the Living Witness is 3074 at the final reflection, right? If he's there for many years and then hops in a ship and goes back home, even with no dilate, I mean, it doesn't even matter. He's a program. Like, this is feasible only because he's immortal, right? Like, he could actually just show up on that space station and say what's up to the new Federation and be like, what the heck has happened to you guys? Like, that would be such an awesome
That would
plot
be so
device.
good.
No, I
That
would
be
love
so
it.
good.
If they don't do that, which I frankly don't expect them to, because I don't think any of us have the personal contact info for the writers or producers of Discovery. But if they don't do that, the other hilarious cameo he could make is like, what if he just eventually, like, his ship breaks down and he lands on a planet and then eventually finds a way to, like, copy himself, and there's just a bunch of doctors, like,
Oh my God,
living on
yeah.
this planet they find.
Planet Doctor,
Yeah.
Planet Zimmerman. So I just want to tie it back into the data problem that we were talking about before. It is still true that he would be, this doctor was many years older, and he spent like a very long time on this planet. We have not one but two episodes of precedent for if the doctor is left alone long enough, he ends up getting into a relationship, right?
Yes,
like
'cause he has a kid.
Yeah, exactly. He has like a family in one of the ones. So there's that planet that is like aging very rapidly or whatever, right? And or the time is going by very quickly. And so or very slowly, right? So no. So it's slow for Voyager and it's fast for them. So they beam the doctor down and he beams back. And it's been like years. And when he comes back, he's got a family. And then later at the final episode of Voyager, he also had a wife. So like he becomes more and more human, I guess, for lack of a better word. And then eventually ends up forming bonds, having romantic interludes, has a relationship, etc. It makes perfect sense that would happen here in this scenario. Again, he spent many years on this planet. And that would be the same exact frame that we gave for why he could have aged himself, right? He'd be in a relationship, he'd have a family. Why would he be only 40 when his wife is 70? You know what I mean? Like he could easily have updated his matrix to look older, to fit in. That could have just been what he decided to do. And then actual Robert Picardo could show up in the 32nd century to the Federation as himself, and it would just be awesome. And it wouldn't even the beauty of this is it's a copy of the Doctor, guys. It wouldn't even preclude him showing up in other shows with other settings.
That's what I was going to say.
He could be on Discovery and this Janeway reboot.
Well, right, exactly. Because it's the backup copy, it's a way to make it separate where, like you said, the actual Doctor can show up and not have any sort of conflicts. And if they wanted to, at some point, they might even be able to figure out a way for maybe the actual, the Prime Doctor to show up and they could interact together.
Dr. Prime.
Yeah. Well, and NG noted in the chat and also in Discord earlier that like they use the Hirogens like arrays to send him to that experimental ship to get a message to the Federation early on.
Yeah, with Andy
where
Dick.
He meets Andy Dick, EMH Mark II.
Yes. Yes.
And NG pointed out like people could have like made copies and modified him, because remember when Barclay tries to send his hologram to Voyager and the Ferengi intercept it and modify it.
Oh my God, you're right. Evil
even get an
Barclay.
Evil the Doctor.
Oh, I mean, we've had Evil the Doctor, but yes,
That's
that would
true.
be.
Oh yeah, and like the Darkling and whatnot.
Yeah, the Darkling. That was it. He basically became like an amalgamation of like evil literary characters throughout history.
Yeah. We could get like a truly like modified like evil Doctor, which would be kind of cool.
That would be cool. That's I think the true beauty of his character is that it is wide open. Nobody even has to work that hard to make this possible. But what is so cool about our pitch is that it would be an awesome tie-in to Discovery, which not only has had... Yeah, I mean, and Discovery has not even had enough tie-ins, right? Not enough. It has been completely separate, doing its own crazy thing, even if before it left, right? It was kind of like flying in the face of continuity a lot of times. I think a lot of old school Trekkies have felt that that's true. So, I mean, it doesn't necessarily come to the detriment of its own storytelling, but certainly there's, in my opinion, not enough of those great connections. And then when it left to go to the 32nd century, I mean, because that's what Star Trek is all about, right? Let's be real. Star Trek has got so many shows and movies over so long a time that everything is a reference, everything is connected, everything is a throwback or a connection in some way. And that's what makes it so great to be a fan. The more you know, the more you get to appreciate. And that was kind of missing in Discovery. And now that it went to the 32nd century, while they're kind of out of the way, it now does kind of preclude them from having any other Star Trek interactions. Am I right? Like, it does seem like that's kind of dead, except that Robert Picardo can just show up randomly. I just think that's the coolest idea ever, because he's a clone. He's a copy. He could still show up in Star Trek Janeway. He could still show up in Lower Decks or anything that we want him to. So
and let's
I
be
don't
clear.
know.
If Star Trek Janeway happens, which, again, big supporter of the idea, and Robert Picardo isn't on it, I'm going to throw a fit.
Oh my gosh, it would be so upsetting and
how could
crazy.
How could he not be on it? Like, that would be just so horrible.
Especially because we know he wants to be, right? Like, he has made that very clear. He's one of the most outspoken.
I'm just saying, Paramount, listen up. I I will throw
Azure's
a tantrum.
coming for you.
You're never gonna hear it, but I'm gonna throw a tantrum.
Science Officer Azure is going to be on this podcast complaining about it. So get ready. All right, so that is our big pitch for Robert Picardo coming back to not just whatever Star Trek they're planning in the hopes of Star Trek Janeway, but also the potential possibility of the coolest thing ever for Discovery. Here's my only potential downside. It is one episode that creates this framework. Just one in the heart of Star Trek Voyager. And it's not even a popular one. Like it's, they would literally have to retell the whole story. They would have to recap everything that happened pretty specifically to be able to set that dynamic up. And that would be a weird thing to do on Discovery. But
Yeah.
not saying that it couldn't be done. I'm getting more and more faith in Kurtzman all the time. I believe, man, it could be done. I never thought I would say it, but I think Kurtzman is improving by leaps and bounds. I'm having faith. I've got faith of the heart, guys, is what I'm trying to say to all of you. I was hoping Azure would just spit his drink out at that moment.
No, just heavy sigh.
Just the heavy sigh. So what ended up starting a lot of this discussion is specifically Janeway. There has been like this outpour of support for Kate Mulgrew coming back as Janeway. In fact, it didn't even start with her, right? There's a lot of these other castmates that have made mention publicly that they would be interested or like trying to drum up enthusiasm about this. But we, the fans, who Star Trek, specifically Star Trek Voyager and DS9, I'd say even more DS9, but Voyager and DS9 have become appreciated more now than they even were then. Like, I think that we've kind of looked back and really seen these people, you know, for the heroes that they really are. And Janeway, Kate Mulgrew really like paved the way. Woman captain, but like kicked butt through 7 seasons of adversity. I mean, she was actually like a legitimate hero in sci-fi. Super awesome. She has definitely like garnered that level of popularity today. And I think there's a huge amount of fan swell to try to get her an actual show. Now that Star Trek Picard has come out, we've seen that it's possible. We've seen that it's doable. We've seen that there's an audience for it, right? And I think that's what the studios really wanted to see. That just started to become a thing. Why not Janeway? Why not bring her back? Especially, and I think it's probably directly connected, even more so, to the fact that 7 of 9 is on Star Trek Picard, right? We have to acknowledge that it is not a TNG character. The fact that she's in there was a direct branch, right? Like, if her life went that way and she's all crazy, like, where's Janeway? You know, they were so close. That was her mentor. In fact, going through that show again recently, I want to say 7 of 9 had arrested development. She was assimilated as a child, and when she was freed as an adult, she basically went through teenage years. She was a teenager on that show, and Janeway was her mom. That's the exact dynamic that they had throughout the entire thing. She was a teenager rebelling with her mother.
Yeah, I had never thought of it that way, but the rebellion thing really strikes true with Seven's character.
It does.
Also, don't you think also with Janeway that there is so much more to that character to tell? You know, it was only 7 seasons. There were so many characters on the show, and everybody got a little bit of their character development. But there was so much, I feel, for Janeway to still explore in her character. And I think part of that was because there was some conflict of what they wanted to do with her throughout the show. And I know she kind of didn't want to do certain things and vice versa. But I feel like this is a great opportunity to really delve into the Janeway character as a more like centralized, focused storyline.
Which, of course, follows suit with Star Trek Picard, right? Which, while it is a reboot of TNG, technically it's called Star Trek Picard, and it is almost entirely about him, right? He's absolutely the main character in this frame, and that would be the case for Janeway too. And I'm actually excited to read some of the quotes that Janeway or that Kate Mulgrew has said about this, because it sort of speaks to that directly. But one of the cool...
I was just going to say, that is the direction they've been going in. I mean, right? Even with Discovery, like, they're focused on Michael Burnham. Like, they've been moving Star Trek to more single character focused content. So if they're going to be doing that, why not explore some of our favorite characters that we would love to know more about? No,
I completely agree. That's absolutely true. I want to also read what Vahalik said. He said, I'd want to say that she is one of the more tested captains as well, due to being away from the Federation and cut off from all support and resupply for so long, and she kept that ship and crew together hard as nails and battle tested. Could not agree more. That is absolutely perfectly said. She was at once a hardened battle commander badass and also the mother of this whole crew that was trying to get them home and protect them desperately. She really was, which was at the time like an almost unheard of trope, right? She was like a tough woman who was like a badass, but she was also very, motherly. Her feminine side was still very intact. She was a woman who was just kicking ass, and you never doubted for a second that she was the captain of that ship. She really had that authority. It was believable in every scene ever. And I think the setting is exactly what Vahalik said. I think that's totally true. She had a very unique setting that I don't know how every other captain would have dealt with. I mean, I like literally go through the captains that 7 years in the Delta Quadrant in that scenario. We don't really know. One of my favorite episodes of Voyager ever is the one that has that ship that I want. I could open it. I could open this right now. What's it called?
You want?
The Nova class.
Equinox?
The Equinox, thanks. The Equinox. Yes, Edgy, thank you. The Equinox was another crew that got, we don't see this until later in the show, but they also got sucked into the Delta Quadrant. Another Federation crew that basically, this was such a cool mirror to reflect upon the choices and dynamics of Voyager under the captaincy of Janeway making those decisions. Because what would happen if another Starfleet captain and crew and ship got sucked into the Delta Quadrant and maybe didn't have that resolve? That's what we got to see in that scenario. That ship had made all the wrong choices, right? Well, it was to do anything to get home, basically.
Well, and not only that, but Janeway also had to integrate former enemies of the Federation into her crew.
The Maquis, yes,
yes. The leadership or I don't think charisma would be enough, but whatever it was she had that made that work, along with Chakotay's support, because like you said, those were some of his coolest scenes.
Oh yeah,
was
absolutely
getting the Maquis in line. But
I love that.
That's a skill in and of itself. She negotiated this really tough situation while being stranded. And when you said think about other captains, there's an episode in Enterprise early on. Well, no, it's not early on, but it's a flashback episode. Where Archer is vying for command of the first NX warp ship. And
oh yeah,
the guy he's competing with, who goes by AG, I'm guessing those are initials, points out to him
JG?
that once you're out there, no, AG, I think.
Oh, I was thinking JG Hertzler.
Oh man, he was so good. Anyway, wait, before I get distracted, he points out to Archer, once you're out there, you're not going to be able to call into headquarters all the time to get advice. They want someone who's going to be able to take charge and do their own thing. And Archer was genuinely worried about this, and rightfully so. And Janeway not never. She doesn't have that opportunity for years until they finally make contact with the Federation.
Which is
and
season
even then,
4.
She never asks them for what should I do about this situation? She just reports to them this is what's happened.
And that's not even until season 5 where she can answer back, right? That's
right.
That's so far into it, and she always just kind of makes that decision. One of the greatest episodes, and this is awesome because when Janeway was talking about her character and how she'd like to see it evolve, and this is just recently in the discussion about the possibility of Star Trek Janeway, the episode Night was brought up, which is the episode with the Void and how loneliness of command finally sunk in on her, right? And she had recoiled from the crew, locked herself in her quarters. Remember that whole thing? That was a great. That was a good deep dive into the psychology of Janeway. It also fleshed out a little bit more of that bond that she had with Chakotay and with Tuvok. In fact, I believe there's a great moment that you always forget about between Tuvok and Chakotay, who before that point have always sort of bristled at each other, right? They've never
Was
really
this where they talk about the promotion situation.
Yes, where they acknowledge the friction between them. That's the first time that they've ever done that. It's that Chakotay doesn't know what to do because Janeway's locked herself away and everyone else is freaking out because they're in a blanket of night of the void. There's no stars. They can see nothing. And they're going to be in there for 2 years of nothing but pitch darkness with nothing to do, nothing to look at, no side quests to go on, right? Like it is a total void. And she is freaked out by it. And so Chakotay talks to Tuvok and says like, hey, I know we've never been friends and you've never really liked this. In fact, I think he starts off by saying, Tuvok, I need to ask you some advice. And Tuvok goes, like the sassiest Tuvok you ever see, he goes, first.
Oh yeah.
And so he goes, I know we've never gotten along, but I need to rely on your knowledge and relationship with Janeway. Like, what's going on? And he just flat out says exactly what it is. You know, she regrets her choice getting everyone lost in the Delta Quadrant. And he goes, she told you that? He goes, no, we've been friends for forever. I know everything about her. And they actually have this really great moment between them, which I thought was really cool. But that whole thing about her being completely isolated in command in the Delta Quadrant, yeah, she rocks it, and it is the heaviest of burdens. I like that episode because they actually acknowledged that. Like, she is in a crazy position. That is an insane setting for a show, and they did that really well, I thought. Voyager is a special show. That was whoever sat down in a boardroom and was like, we need another Star Trek. TNG is off the air now. DS9 is it's like it's doing all right. We need another show. We want now that TNG is gone, we can go back to a ship. We want to be on a ship. We got the space station. We want to be back on the ship. And someone was like, yeah, but it can't just be the same thing. Whoever came up with the idea, like, and I don't even think that the plot device that propelled them to the Delta Quadrant is especially cool. But it almost doesn't matter, right? It doesn't even matter. Like, the setting of that show, whoever came up with that is a freaking genius, man. I mean, it framed that entire show in such a cool way and allowed for such great storytelling.
I am glad. So we joke about it. I don't know that we've joked about it on the podcast, but it's been joked about in chat before or in our Discord. About like things like, oh, they only had this many torpedoes and apparently they just solved that eventually. But I'm actually glad that they didn't hyper fixate on like the survivalist aspect. Like they did it originally and I liked it. But if the entire series had been a constant, we're always low on this resource or this one, it would have bottled them in from a lot of good stories that they told.
I completely agree with that, and I never stopped and really delved into my thoughts about that until this watch through, and I really have given it like some good thought, and I think you're 100% right. I mean, as cool as the idea is where they're like super low, but like giving us the direct count of how many photon torpedoes were left, and then like making way for that video. I don't know if anyone has seen this. It is hysterical. Any fans of Star Trek out there, there's a YouTube video that really tracks like them saying how many torpedoes they've got. They're like, all right, so we're in the Delta Quadrant. We only have a complement of like 47 torpedoes. And then it like goes down from there and it counts each torpedo being fired and how many they say. And they're like, all right, we've only got 22 torpedoes left. And then by the end of it, they fired like 400 more torpedoes. Like, it's definitely hysterical. It was a cool idea. And it was just enough, I think, to give us, I don't know, a sense of the fact that they don't have plenty, right? That's necessary for that dynamic to exist in the show. I also enjoyed that in DS9. DS9, they were on the fringe of Starfleet's explored space. They were a faraway outpost. They couldn't snap their fingers and get reinforcements at any moment. It was really a very different environment, and they did just enough of that in Voyager, I think, to make it really feel like they were isolated without making that be the detriment to the storytelling. So I agree. So I do want to talk about Janeway coming back. Like I said, the fans really made this happen, and she was immediately on board. You could absolutely tell. She was sort of like going to conventions, excited when people would ask about it. She was happy. I mean, we know her. We love her. Kate Mulgrew is the best. She loves her character, and she would love to reprise that role. I mean, we know that that's true. But she would start dropping hints or saying things like, people would ask her at a convention, and she'd say, the truth is it's really up to you guys. Like it's however much enthusiasm you guys can drum up. Like if you're asking me if I would do it, the answer would be yes, as long as certain things were met, right? Like it would have to be the right thing. But I would love to come back and have that be a successful thing, but it's really up to the fans. And so she has just helped it being drummed up constantly. There's a ton of enthusiasm behind this, but there's some great quotes. And just to give you an idea of sort of her perspective on it, this was an interview with Janeway talking about returning. She said, "I think it's in discussion. You know, in Hollywood, what does that really mean anyway? That's like a man saying to you after a date, I'll call you. There's been a hue and a cry of late. I was in Europe doing a tour and there was a lot of that too. When are we going to see Janeway live action? There seems to be something of interest going on. You know, I didn't think I would do it because I'm of a certain age now, but just as I was a certain age then, right? I mean, she was 39 when she picked that up, right? Not exactly leading woman thing for the 90s. So she was already sort of that, which was awesome.
I didn't realize she was 39. I think you've said it before, but I forgot.
Yeah, 39. And by the time she finished 7 years later, man, she ended that show at 46. Just total champ. She says, but I'm strong. I'm still very strong and still full of life. And I adore this character. So why on earth wouldn't I bring her back? I loved hearing her say that. It just the enthusiasm there, and I want to just reiterate what she said. I love Patrick Stewart, and Picard in his prime was the greatest captain that could ever have been written. I mean, just absolutely phenomenal. But Sir Patrick Stewart, as glorious of a career as he has had, we've mentioned it before, he's very old and very frail, and his voice, which was such an iconic aspect of him and that character and his acting, is no longer that powerful instrument that it used to be. When I watch it, I'll see these great moments with him, but I'm constantly sad. I feel like in every single scene that he's in, I'm saying farewell to my TV space dad from the 90s. Like, it feels like a goodbye, even though he's not dying, right? It just feels like it's constantly us saying goodbye to this man because he's very old, he's very frail. Janeway does not have that. She is in, what, her 60s, I guess? And she is...
Yeah, it's like 67 or something like that.
67? And she is vibrant. She is just strong. I think she could absolutely lead a show, which is awesome.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, because, you know, how many seasons are they intending to do for this? Like, how many seasons is Picard? How many seasons would a Janeway be? But yeah, no, I mean, she looks like a powerhouse.
As many
still.
As they would give us.
Well, that's what I'm saying. She looks like a powerhouse still. And, you know, there's precedence for that. I mean, what was it? I guess, you know, when Angela Lansbury started Murder, She Wrote, she was almost 60 and that ran 12 years. Yeah, so why not, point. Right?
Also her most successful thing she's ever done, exactly, right? Yeah. Angela Lansbury. So here's another great one, and I love this. This is about, in reference to the storyline for if the show would happen. This is like her requirements for the show because she has now had, it's great, dude. She has now had actual conversations with Kurtzman about this. Like, it's getting more real, guys. And that's what is really exciting about this. But in reply to this, she said, I said this to Kurtzman. The writing is going to have to be absolutely exquisite and as tight. I mean, so tight. I want that language to just burst. I want the story to be so tenuous and taut. I said, no languishing. I don't want peaks and valleys. I want a Janeway that everybody can say, that's what she's become. I'm with her. That is great. And I think some sort of extraordinary adventure for her, even greater than Voyager, even greater than the Delta Quadrant. So I want to ask you guys what you think of this, because to me, it is really hard to read this without that statement being a direct reflection on Picard. Am I alone in feeling like that's true? Do you know what I mean? So when she's saying, I want the writing to be really tight, I want it to be really taut, I want the story to be really good, I don't want there to be peaks and valleys, I want it to be a good, solid, continuous adventure, I want a Janeway that is written in a way that everyone can say, that's what she's become. I'm with her. This is great. And that is, you know what I mean? Like, why would you say these things?
Well,
because everything that Janeway has ever been in up until this point would exactly categorize, or would be categorized by all of what she's just saying. But all those things she's saying are the really real and valid critiques that could be made about Star Trek Picard. And not everyone is saying, this is what he's become. I'm with her. This is great about Picard. Not, I should have said him, but you know what I mean. Like
Fenwick
that.
agrees with you. I had not interpreted it like that, but now that you say it, I can see exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So Fenwick, I just couldn't help but feel that in there because if she's having this discussion, of course it's in the context of Picard. That's the whole idea. That's the whole reason this is even happening. Picard is happening, and it's called Star Trek Picard. Everyone wants Star Trek Janeway, and now they're coming to her and asking, and she's like, I want to do it, but I don't want to go through like the rapids, right? That Picard is and has gone through. Like, it's not that Picard isn't successful. It's not that Picard doesn't have huge amounts of fans, but it is very specifically not the show that everyone turns and says, that's what he's become. I'm with him. This is great, right? That's not what this is. So I don't know. To me, it feels like
But you know, I often
she wants
wonder,
to avoid that.
I often wonder with Star Trek Picard, and I guess they could have changed this, but even in Next Gen, they did so many episodes focusing on Picard's physical ailments. You know what I mean? They did a lot of foreshadowing, even at the end of Next Gen, about the fact that he had certain problems and that he may end up having some sort of a disease as an older
trivia
character.
question. What was the
Aromatic
disease?
syndrome.
I just felt that in my trivia. You just got me bad, dude. I was not there. 10 out of 10, Asher.
But right. So he had these syndromes and he had these things and there were certain things, right, where they went into the future, possible futures where there was some sort of a problem. And I don't know, like, I wonder if that was really, if that was part of the consideration when making some of these things, to not necessarily make him a powerhouse because of all this history of certain physical ailments that he could potentially have. I know the other option would have been to just write them out and say, oh, well, they came up with a cure for that. It's not a problem.
It is Star Trek. You can do whatever you want.
And of course they could have done that. But, you know, with Janeway, that was never really baked into her character. So there's really no precedence for that. And she could very much come in as the total badass powerhouse hero.
Janeway?
Yeah, in this
Yes.
show, in this, like, you know, assumed new show, where she really could just take the lead in and do something extraordinary, and it could be tight, and it could, you know, it doesn't have to go more than a couple of seasons if the storyline is fantastic and has a lovely wrap up.
They also have a younger crew. I mean, they actually could go as long as they wanted to, you know, depending. But you're right. I mean, it wouldn't have to be. It could be whatever it felt like it needed to be. But I agree that there's precedence for older Janeway. There's precedence for Admiral Badass Janeway. There's real precedence for this, not only in Prodigy, but in Star Trek First Contact. It was First Contact, right? Admiral Janeway was like, no. It was one of the TNG movies.
Yeah,
Fenwick, help me out, buddy.
I assume it's got to be Nemesis.
It's got to be Nemesis?
I just my guess.
Nemesis. Thanks, Fenwick. Okay, yes. So she shows it because it was First Contact was too soon. It was later, but she's like older Admiral Janeway. Like, this character exists. We can do things with this. Old badass Janeway is chasing after Chakotay as we speak, guys. in Prodigy. This is real. Like, this can happen as much as we want it to happen. It can happen. So the precedence is there.
Well, yeah, and I think that would be one of the cool things about Janeway is so lots of admirals, and this gets brought up in DS9 when they're talking. When I think it's actually Michael Eddington's talking to Sisko that, like, you don't join Starfleet to be a lieutenant or even an admiral. You join it to be a captain.
For the captain. Yeah. Oh my God, I love Eddington.
But, like, so many admirals that we see in Star Trek are, like, you know, they basically work a desk job back at headquarters or whatever. But you see this with Admiral Riker, and I think you'd see it again with Janeway, that they're, like, on a ship taking action.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, Admiral
just being
Riker.
badass.
Good call. Yeah. Arguably even more badass, right? Like, as Admiral Riker.
Yeah.
Old and grumpy, maybe. Yeah, yes, Fenwick. Never let them promote you. Never let them transfer you. Never let them do anything to get you out of that chair, because while you're there, you can make a difference.
Oh, I like it. You do the Kirk quotes very well.
That's the Kirk from the movies, yeah.
High Priority One.
Priority 1 rating with a party of 20. What's up, man? Welcome, everyone. I don't know where you're coming from. If you came from Star Trek Online, we are doing a Star Trek podcast. This is the Night Shift. We are a fleet in STO, but also just a Discord community. We haven't shouted out the community in a while, so if you guys are interested, we do watch parties and Let's Plays, and we do a weekly podcast from the Floor 47 mezzanine in Earth Space Dock every single week. You can come up and see us right now in Earth Space Dock number 13 at the Floor 47 mezzanine, and we do just basically a everything Star Trek podcast. Today we are discussing basically the return of many characters from the franchise to new shows. We were just talking about Prodigy, how Janeway is sort of back in action, the big call for getting Star Trek Janeway, the live action series, made again, some of the quotes she's given about her feelings about coming back. Robert Picardo, of course, Bob Picardo, huge fan of the Doctor, made a lot of comments about what he would like in a way that he would love to come back to the show, even some ideas that he spitballed about how that could be done. And we gave our very favorite ever idea that we came up with ourselves on how Robert Picardo could come back to the franchise. But overall, thank you guys so much for the follows. Sorry, we're getting a little derailed here, but we got a lot of excitement in the stream. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate all the follows, guys. So really, we've been talking about all the characters coming back to Star Trek, the precedent that has now been set by Star Trek Picard, that there is not just a lot of energy and enthusiasm behind getting these things, being brought back to the small screen, but also a giant audience that is excited to see it happen. Kate Mulgrew, who is phenomenal, has made it very clear that she would like to come back. We just read all the requirements that she would want to add to making sure that things were the way that she would want them if she came back. And one of them is hilarious, by the way. She insisted no buns.
I was going to bring that up if you didn't mention it.
Wait, no hair buns?
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic.
She hates the buns. And let me tell you guys right now, buns or not, I'm surprised that she said buns, because yes, there were a few funny buns. There were a few funny buns out there, but it's not really just the buns. It's just her hair. The entire show, they could not settle on a hairstyle. It was every other episode. Her hair was dramatically different, and some of them are atrocious. That poor woman. She had it worse than Marina Sirtis as Deanna Troi. It was just, which was also a disaster. They could not get her right. They couldn't get her costume right. They couldn't get her hair right, and jewelry, whatever. But poor Kate Mulgrew. I mean, it was, there's got to be 37 different hairstyles that she went through in Voyager. Am I right? I mean, it was bad.
They tried a lot of them. I actually liked some of the early ones where, I mean,
those
maybe
are the buns.
Maybe those are the buns. I thought those were kind of nice when they did the wrap or something. But anyway.
I feel like the bun's main purpose was to show that during a tough situation, part of her hair would come loose.
Oh, for dramatic effect. Yes.
Right. That was great.
Like they shout, all right, everyone, you're gonna get hit by a photon torpedo. Everyone, I don't know if you guys know how they do the shake, right? Like the shake. There was a number system, so they would be like, everyone, you got hit by a torpedo. It's a 7. So everyone would be like, oh god, and then she'd fall off the camera, and then they'd pause and they like pull hair strands out of her hair in front of her face to make it look like she's been really jostled a lot. So yeah, I mean that's possible. That actually is pretty good.
Fun fact, and this is from the Delta Flyers podcast that Garrett Lang and Robert Duncan McNeil do.
Love them.
When they, during the early filming sessions, the crew, especially the newer actors, were having a lot of trouble getting the shakedown. The shakedown. Getting it right. And apparently someone, maybe one of the producers or something, was like, DS9's filming down in this next lot. Just go knock on Avery's trailer
and see how they do
ask him. And they were, at least Garrett Wang and Robert Duncan McNeil, were too scared to go bug him because he was intimidating.
I would have been too. He was intimidating. That is a consistent story through DS9. And we talked about it, I think, it was a couple of weeks ago's podcast. But Terry Farrell, right, who played Jadzia, she had the hardest time working with Avery Brooks at first. She was, first of all, she was like a model. She didn't have much acting experience. She was totally lost in this role. A very pretty face that was supposed to be, she was like 21 or something. She was like a baby, and she was supposed to play someone who was hundreds of years old and was the mentor of the captain or commander of this ship. And she did not know how to play that, and actually has told stories about how he was intimidating as heck and literally was taking up all the air in the room, like just wouldn't give her the room to do it at all. And she finally broke down. It took her for like months, right? Finally broke down and was like, talked with him and said, I'm terrified of you and you are really taking up all the space and I don't know how to work with you on this. Like, and he was so sweet. This is the greatest thing. Like, he might be really intimidating, but having the talk. She tells this story. I think it was in the What We Left Behind documentary, but she ends up telling the story about her coming to him, and he took her under his wing, made room for her, helped her become that. And the characters in Deep Space Nine go over a character arc like no other show, right? The characters themselves change and evolve more than any other show. But as far as the actors go, I don't think any actor evolved more as an actor than Terry Farrell on that show. My God, season 1 Terry Farrell, season 4 Terry Farrell, different human beings. I mean, different characters, but also different actors. And I think they really came a long way because of that. So super cool. Yeah, so the buns thing is hilarious. Speaking of, we're going to go back to what we should be talking about. But
can we go back to the doctor since we have all these new friends and viewers here?
Well, yes. And by the way, guys, if you missed the beginning of the podcast and you're interested, please check us out on YouTube. We are trying to get to 100 subscribers so we can actually become youtube.com/Star Trek Night Shift. You have to have 100 subscribers first. But you can check the VOD on our YouTube channel. So after this is over, we actually upload it to YouTube. So you guys can check it out if you would like to. But since we're talking about the hair, one of the funny things about Ben Sisko is that he hated the first several seasons of the show. He was famous for another show where he was a very Shaft type, hard, young black like detective guy or something, and he was very famous for this one role. I forgot the name of it.
Can't think of it off the top of my head either.
I can't remember the name of it. Maybe somebody in the chat will know. But he was very famous for this. It was his big standout role. So he at the time was bald and had a goatee. It was his favorite look. He loved it, but he was too famous for that look. And so when they brought him in as the captain, which was a humongous departure in characters from what he had played to this well-to-do Starfleet captain, or commander, I should say, they had to have him be very different. So they said, you have to grow hair and you have to shave the goatee. He was miserable and he hated it. And as the years went on, he finally put his foot down and was like, listen, I'll keep doing this show, which is lasting for forever, but I'm shaving my head and I'm growing a goatee. And they were like, fine. Like, people, they know you well enough now. So
is it Spencer? Hawk? Yeah. He played Hawk?
Hawk. That's it. That's the character. That is the character. Yes.
Oh, there were a bunch of like TV movies from like 1993 to 1995.
Oh, Vin, thank you. Hawk on Spencer for Hire. There it is, there man. Yes, thank you. So he was definitely, and thanks for the first time chat. He was he was known very much for that role. So finally he got to be what he wanted to be. I think it was around, wasn't it the episode of the solar sail ship? Wasn't that the one where he decided to grow?
I think it was. Goatee. I think that was one of the first ones.
Yeah, so good. I mean, it was such an awesome time for that. Hey guys, we're getting some subscribers on YouTube. You're awesome. Thank you so much. So he finally got to be what he wanted to be. But I did think it was hilarious that Kate Mulgrew was like, "Listen, I'll come back, but no buns. You got to leave my hair alone." Basically,
and it's weird because she also wants a goatee. I'm kidding. Kate Mulgrew has not said that.
I would watch Kate Mulgrew with a goatee. Okay, nothing would stop me from watching Kate Mulgrew. I adore her. Okay, so since we're talking about, characters reprising their roles and coming back, this whole framework is very new. This is brand new. There's it's not that there haven't been spin-offs of old TV shows or movies made of old TV shows, getting the actors to come back, but Star Trek is unprecedented. There is this huge block, right, of 4 TV shows that were like practically overlapping or consistent. That now that there's like this precedent for them coming back, and all of these actors, unlike every other TV show or whatever, these guys are still active in Star Trek. They've been active in their franchise their whole freaking lives. They're going to conventions every year, and now all of a sudden there's like this concept of like, hey, you can come back and do this again, and it's kind of insane. I wanted to read you a couple of interesting things, because now that this is happening and the precedent is made, there's a ripple that has gone through a bunch of the actors, and now every time, because of Star Trek Picard, every time, and of course this new golden era of Star Trek where there are literally 5 Star Treks on the air at the same time. That's what's going on right now, by the way, guys. This is the greatest time to be a Trekkie in the history of existence. It's amazing. But there's this thing now that anytime these guys have just been going to conventions for the last 35 years, and when they or more, right, in the case of TOS, and now every single panel that they ever sit in, the questions, right, the conversation is, hey, what about you? You guys too? When are you coming back? Like, that's the new thing. So every actor has talked about it. Every actor has given their 2 cents on how they feel about it. I wanted to give you some interesting quotes from people that were really interesting here. One, this is from Worf. This is from Michael Dorn, who, of course, is Mr. Star Trek. I think between TNG movies and Deep Space Nine, he's probably the winner for in the most episodes of Star Trek in history, right? I think that's probably safe to say at this point. He was asked in January of 2021. That's how recent this was, but it was before he was contacted about coming back for Star Trek Picard Season 3. He said, this is on Worf returning for a show of any kind. He said, well, let me put it this way. Sorry, I felt like I had to deepen my voice to do the Michael Dorn. I have not been contacted about that, but I don't like to say yes or no. It really depends on quite a few things. It depends on the role. It depends on how they want to represent it. The one thing you have to realize is that I have to get into makeup. You are talking about 3 hours every time. For me to do that, it really has to be kind of worth it. You know what I mean? I don't want to get all dressed up just to stand around and scowl at people.
I mean, that's a fair response right there.
It reminds me of another moment from What We Left Behind, where Cole Meany was being interviewed, or like they were joking about how much he would complain about sitting in the makeup chair when he was there for like 5 or 10 minutes.
Yes, and Odo and him and Quark would be like,
and
you
it's Renee
bastard.
and Michael Dorn sitting there like, laughing at him basically.
By the way, I spent my entire life, I remember being a kid and memorizing the names. TNG would come up, right? Like, and the big TNG fanfare music is playing, and all of the actors' names are coming up, and I learned them all. I made myself memorize them all because I loved that. But I also said Colm for forever. Apparently, it's Colm. Colm Meany. Yes, I know. It is a traditional Irish name. It's
I was gonna say
Colm.
Irish names are so weird. I mean, I'm Irish, but like they're just so weird.
They are the weirdest. I forgot who's the name of that girl who is Irish. She's a famous person, and on one of the talk shows, one of those like daytime talk shows or whatever.
I know
they asked her like, can you read this name? Like, how do you pronounce this name? And all of them were insane, and she was pronouncing them like
you could just never predict.
Yeah, she was just making up different sounds that were not on the paper at all. It was. I mean, Irish and Gaelic. It's beautiful, but very unintuitive. Okay,
I'm gonna have to remember that. I don't want to offend him if I ever run into him.
I know, right? And he's done a lot of different TV stuff since then. He's in a lot of stuff. Okay, so I want to get back to Deep Space Nine because, as you guys know, because I brought it up earlier, I know we have new people in the chat today. I am the biggest Niner known to man. Okay, I am a Deep Space Nine fanatic. It is the show that I hated the most when I was a child because I watched it wrong, and then came back to it as an adult, and then fell in love with it because, of course, it is the greatest. It is phenomenal, but you have to watch it in a way that no one was watching TV back then. You had to watch it diligently, episode by episode. It was an episodic growing evolution of a plot, and that just was not in your brain back then. It wasn't that way. So we ended up watching the shows completely wrong, and so as an adult I watched it and fell in love with it. But now that there's this big precedent, like I said, it's rippling everywhere, and now we've been bringing up What We Left Behind a lot in the last little bit, right? What We Left Behind is a documentary that they made about Deep Space Nine, and they made it just a couple years ago, like 2019 or something. And the reason why was because not only did I have a reimagining, a reappreciation of the show because I binged it and watched it correctly, but so did an entire generation of Star Trek fans. It is very common to have people say, I grew up disliking Deep Space Nine, and then I watched it on Netflix when it was available and realized what a great show it was. Everyone had that experience. It was a collective experience, and all of the actors from Deep Space Nine were going to conventions and talking about it like it was this crazy revelation. They were saying like, there's this giant new resurgence about our show. There's this whole new audience that love Deep Space Nine. I mean, we've had fans, loving amazing fans for forever, but now there's this whole new swell of appreciation for Deep Space Nine because of everyone's, not just because of the format, the platforms that exist that allow for binging, right? Like the streaming services, but the culture itself and binging being like a very common way to watch TV shows. And so there was such this new resurgence of love for DS9 such a big one that they actually had reason and money to go back and make a real documentary and talk about the show in a way that they never got to before. So now there's this whole new generation of lovers of Deep Space Nine. And of course, going to all of these conventions now, everyone is saying, when do you guys come back? When do we get more Deep Space Nine? And that is, of course, what I want. Yeah, it's better when binge, Fenwick. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. It is a whole different experience. And I'm talking to all you guys out there right now. If you watched Deep Space Nine when you were younger and your memory of that show is that you don't like it, please do yourself and Captain Merrick the biggest favor ever and go back and watch the greatest show that was ever made. It is just absolutely phenomenal. So here is some cool quotes from people that have been asked questions about them coming back as Deep Space Nine. So first of all, we did see the now famous and beloved episode of Lower Decks where they go back to Deep Space Nine. Did you guys love that? Was that not like everything you wanted from that and more?
Just keep circling like you're in all of the pylons.
Just keep circling. Okay, now what? Just keep circling. It was so good. Jenny has probably had to watch. She's my wife, by the way, if anyone's new. She's had to watch Deep Space Nine a ton because I watch it practically on repeat.
That's true. That may be the one that I've seen the most, even though it's not necessarily my favorite unless I'm watching it, because when I'm watching it, it is my favorite.
How dare you.
What is marriage other than watching your significant other's shows, regardless of your feelings?
Oh man, that is really true. Yeah. I think our relationship's a little one-sided in that way. I definitely have her watch more than she has me watch.
This is a fact.
You were actually just describing the other day. You're like, Junie's not feeling well, so I put on one of those shows that she likes that I don't like to watch.
Yes, that's true. She's got her like Netflix shows that I don't know. I'm not into. But anyway, so the episode on Lower Decks was really well received. It was really well done, and we were talking earlier in this podcast about the data problem where people have aged beyond where they were supposed to age. Luckily, like in the case of Star Trek Picard, they've aged exactly the right amount of time because it's been that long, and that they've set that at the same time frame 30 years later ish, right? So everyone has aged the right amount, but Data was an android and not supposed to age at all. But some of this was really cool. When you do it in an animated show, you kind of bypass this problem. And Nana Visitor, who came back for Kira, and Armin Shimerman as Quark, they loved their roles. They thought it was hilarious. It was amazing. It lent so much to the show. And they were both so capable of doing like the comedic side of it. I mean, obviously Armin Shimerman is hysterical. And Nana Visitor is maybe one of the sweetest human beings in the world. I adore that woman. She is in my top 5 I want to meet in real life Trek people, the famous people at all, actually. She's just phenomenal. But a fan asked Kira, or Nana Visitor, about her returning, and she said this: I would love it, but I would want to know that there was some kind of continuity, that it would really matter. I mean, there are some jobs where, they're jobs, and I go, it's all right. And I do it. I do acting jobs for different reasons. Star Trek is something else. And the relationship with the audience is something else. I really do feel the responsibility towards it. So unless it was a certain thing, a certain way, certain writers, I would be concerned. Would I want to? Do I want Ira Stephen Bear to write one and say, Nana, come back? Yes. So that's what she wants. She actually, I just loved that quote from her because she's one of those people that is, you guys, if you watch the podcast a lot, you hear me use the term friend to the franchise. There are some Star Trek actors who are maybe not as nice to the franchise or to the fans or not as appreciative of Star Trek in their lives. And then there are people that are just really pro Star Trek and really understand the weight and significance of their role in something that has changed so many lives. And Nana Visitor is absolutely one of them. I love to hear that it's significant to her, that it's very important that it follow that level of continuity, that level of writing, that it was done correctly. Otherwise, like, it would be a disrespectful to what it, to the body of work she's already done, right? So, I mean, I thought that was pretty cool. My other favorite one, and you guys are going to get a kick out of this, and we've talked about this one before a little bit, but Terry Farrell, who plays Jadzia Dax, is hilarious. She's amazing. She actually quit acting, if anyone doesn't know. She quit acting in 2002, I think, to basically settle down, right? She had kids, and she married Star Trek royalty. She married Spock's son, for those of you guys who don't know. Horrendously sad. They actually got a divorce a couple of years ago.
Oh, wow. I didn't hear about that.
It's very sad. I wanted them to live happily ever after, but Adam Nimoy, I think, is her ex-husband. But she basically retired from acting, and then now her kids, right? 2002, 18 years later, her kids are in college. They're out of the house, and she has done interviews now stating that she's back, or she wants to be back. She has been one of the most directly outspoken, I want to come back to Star Trek people that we've seen, which is really unfortunate because the way in which she left.
Yeah, but you've already addressed that this is super easy to get around.
And I want to address it again, but let me.
It would still be hard.
Wait. Okay, so let me read her quote.
Cisco and her back at the same time. Anyway,
I mean, quote. Possible. So let me read her quote. She, for those of you guys who don't know, that's a spoiler, a big one. But we did say spoilers in this podcast. But you guys know Jadzia Dax left Deep Space Nine, right, guys? She left. So in a way that was hard to come back from. So she ended up saying in an interview on coming back, she said, "I was actually thinking about how Spock died. Didn't he melt?" Basically, he saved everyone's life, and then he just came back. There he was, and Kirk kind of went, "Oh, there he is," and everybody nodded and said, "Yes, he's back." I want that moment for me. Exactly how you bring her back, it's no big fucking deal.
I mean,
that is a direct quote, guys.
Bridge officers are always coming back.
I mean, there is a way to. I guess there's a way to finagle maybe getting her back, but it's certainly not as easy as, for instance, having the Doctor return.
Well,
no,
yeah, agreed.
It is definitely a different thing. So I just want to say,
I hear they've got some pretty good writers.
They got some pretty good writers. I mean, Deep Space Nine has got the best writers. But listen, guys, in case anyone has forgotten how that ended up happening, I have talked about this before, and I think she hasn't really done her homework there. I wish that she would have. She basically said, "Yeah, I died, but who gives a crap? It doesn't matter." And that's fine. She is the Empress. Jadzia Dax, Terry Farrell, I adore you. Whatever you want, we will make happen. But if you a little bit of homework, and I think there's some good ideas in there. So, in case anyone forgot, she was killed by Gul Dukat, who was under the possession of a Pah-wraith inside the Prophet's shrine, right? Well, she wouldn't be the first joint troll to do it. Okay, well, there you go. Hyper, what's up, man? So here's my thinking, guys, right? So she was a staunch atheist in this show. She had no sort of appreciation for
wormhole aliens.
For the wormhole aliens, right? In fact, I've talked about Deep Space Nine ad nauseum about how great that is. They start the show off with, yes, they're aliens, and they're like, oh wait, these are your gods, and then you're like, they're not gods, they're aliens, and they're like, wait, no, they're gods, they're magical, and they're like, no, they're not. Let's have a whole war about this, and then blow up Keiko's school. So there's a ton of back and forth about this. What I love about the show is that they never actually snuff out that light. By the end of the show, magic still exists. They never clear that out. Those aliens are they're actually respected more and more. The religion and beliefs, cultural beliefs
magic kind of ramps up
of the Bajoran people.
Exactly, it ramps up. The actual respect for the magic that is the belief system of the of Bajor is respected even more and even more significant. And at the end of the show, when Worf and Jadzia are trying to have a baby, right? When they're actually trying to get get pregnant. They were told by Bashir it's unlikely. The joining of a Trill and a Klingon, it's probably not going to happen. And what happens is that Kira comes to her at the beginning of the episode and said, I've been praying for you. I've been praying to the prophets that you guys have a baby. And then she finds out that she was pregnant, that it worked, basically. And she, all aglow in the great news that she actually got pregnant, goes to the shrine to thank the prophets, these gods that are literally outside of space and time, right? This is, even if you deny that they're gods, even if they're just aliens, they have the power to snatch somebody from one time frame and drop them in another time frame. We saw it happen with the Dajaras, right? Do you remember the Dajaras episode when the emissary comes back? Yes. So that happens. There's precedence. So if there's any scenario in all of Star Trek where somebody dies and could potentially be brought back, she was praying to them in their shrine. Like, there's real groundwork for this. If they wanted to write that back, they could do it, especially since it turns out that Sisko literally half prophet and is gone and then comes back. You know what I mean? He would have that
back.
Yeah, there's real precedence for this. So I don't know, Terry Farrell, we're writing you an episode, okay? We got ideas, so we can make this happen. Sorry, I was catching up on chat. So wait, I want to know, Hyper, what
who's the other Trill?
What is the other joined Trill?
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, she, her Trill, I mean, her symbiote goes off to Ezri.
Is that a Discovery reference?
Oh.
Where they bring back the one host.
Yes.
It was essentially like a hallucination-ish thing at first.
Wait a sec. Yeah, well, I mean, she
true,
she just exists as like a Katra almost, right? Or they exist. They exist.
Yeah,
they're non-binary.
I don't.
Right?
Well, I think the new host is non-binary. I don't know what the previous one was.
The new one definitely is.
Oh, Gray. Yeah,
Gray is who you're thinking of. Ah, okay.
Yeah,
nice.
they create a body and like, I don't know. I don't remember the actual mechanics, but shove Gray's soul into it.
So Hyper's right. There's even more precedence for this,
there
right?
could be a precedence for Jedzia's soul.
Oh yeah, we could find the current Dax.
Yes,
but Ezri Dax is still
it would be Ezri
there as far as we know, right?
No. If we were to take in the novel verse, and why would they go out of their way to go against that? I know it's not technically
a big verse to bring in.
It is a big verse to bring in. But there's a lot of Ezri, right? Ezri actually captains the USS Vesta, my favorite Star Trek ship ever, outside of the Protostar. I'm a big Protostar fan. Sorry. So there is precedence for this, and I think that would be really, really
unless Jadzia comes back just as Jadzia. I mean, if her soul was plucked up by the prophets when her body died.
Yes.
Oh, I mean,
she could.
Oh, you mean like no Dax, just Jadzia, whatever.
Well, right, because we see her die like on the table in the med bay without her symbiont anymore. Like the symbiont is gone, and Jadzia, just as Jadzia dies, so her body is gone. But I suppose there is some precedence to say, well, maybe the prophets plucked up her soul at that time.
That could be kind of fun because she could be like a different tone of character then, because she doesn't have the Dax symbiont.
That's true.
Oh, that's true.
And would have
fun like exploring basically a new character, but with Terry Farrell as Jadzia.
Which I think would actually be like an easier thing to tell. And then it wouldn't actually eliminate the possibility of the inclusion of Ezri Dax, who I love.
Right,
Ezri
who I
Dax,
love
by the
Ezri
way.
too. I'm a huge fan of Ezri as well. And
Big
that
fan.
could be very interesting to have Ezri Dax meet up with some resurrected Jadzia.
That's true. Oh, that would be interesting story.
There would be a lot of drama there, especially since Ezri is now with Bashir.
Right. Oh man, that's
Ezri
so
Dax.
true. Okay. All right. So we actually get some glimpses of stuff in the future because of STO, right? Like some characters actually come back into Star Trek Online, which is kind of cool. I would have loved to see Ezri come back. Why doesn't Ezri come back?
Oh, that's a good
We
question.
don't know. She might.
She might.
I will still
you
say again that her character coming in for the last season like that, she did a phenomenal job of not only being likable, but having a really full-fledged character in just one season.
I mean,
will say.
Oh, go ahead.
No, mine's going to be an STO thing.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say about that. I think that's probably, I mean, Jennifer's right. That's one of the most challenging things we've ever seen an actor have to undertake in the entire history of Star Trek. She's replacing the most beloved character. I mean, arguably one of the most beloved characters on the show. She has to come in the midst of like the most chaotic crescendo of story that Star Trek has ever seen, and somehow make us not hate her and then care about her. And some of the most iconic episodes in all of the show happen in season 7. She's in Take Me Out to the Holosuites. She's in the Ocean's 11 episode, which I always forget the name of. I mean, she literally finishes off this show in the greatest way ever. And by the end, you're like, yeah, that was one season, but God, it felt like years.
Exactly. I mean,
they
also give her the backstory of her family on the planet. So she has one backstory episode, which is enough to kind of fill in a little bit of that. And then she has the whole thing because she's the one who really worked in the whole, the past host who is the serial killer or whatever he was, right?
Yeah.
So, she's the one who really explores that. There's a good substantial amount of content for her.
Insert Pokemon theme. What's up, Tumer? Oh, no, go ahead and do your thing.
Well, so yeah, my STO thing was going to be, I know you and Jennifer are not caught up on recent stories, so I assume you haven't been playing the episodes as they come out.
No, I don't want to spoil myself from our Let's Play.
In STO,
but
you mean,
this is not a spoiler because it's been on the loading screens, but like Chase Masterson has come back for a bunch of them. So we have one DS9 person who's been doing voice stuff. I'm hoping that means maybe they get Esri at some point.
Well, we had, for the Gamma Quadrant stuff, we had a ton of people come back, man. That was staggering.
I'm so excited to play through.
That was a whole expansion
with you.
Oh my God, it's going to be the best. So you guys know, we do, if you join our Discord, which is !ST Discord, that's the Star Trek Night Shift Discord. We do have an STO fleet, but it's completely optional. We're just like a Star Trek community. We talk Trek all the time. You have questions or you want to pose things about Star Trek you'd like to see on the podcast, whatever. We also, we do watch parties on Thursday, and then we also do an STO Let's Play. So we're actually going through the story in order, so you can see us every Thursday night at 9:30 EST. And we're going to be sort of like exploring the story of STO chronologically. So it's really exciting. I am also really looking forward to getting to that part because I have not done it. And I am the biggest DS9 fan ever. It's going to be awesome, guys. It's going to be really good.
I also want to just give, I want to give a shout out to Junie, who has modified the YouTube command during the stream.
Well, thank you very much.
Look at you.
I figured the Star Trek YouTube is the more popping of our two YouTube channels, so it really deserves
that. Is true. Yeah, that is very true. And guys, thank you so much for following or for subscribing on YouTube. Makes a huge difference if you guys are watching it on YouTube now, because we're going to be uploading this in the future. Smash that like button, write a comment down below. It helps the algorithm so much. And any subscriptions that we get are huge because we're trying to get to 100 subscribers so we can get the...
And they're free on YouTube.
They are free.
It's just
all of that's free.
It's just a follow on YouTube. No money.
Yeah, then we get to be youtube.com/Star Trek Night Shift, which would be amazing. So that's the big goal right now. Also, shout out to STO. Guys, we love Star Trek Online. Star Trek Online is maybe the greatest thing that could happen in the, as a peripheral experience to everything Star Trek. Every cool plot line, every cool question mark or breadcrumb left at the end of an episode is just expounded upon beautifully by this game. If you're a fan of Star Trek and you're not playing STO, I'm almost jealous of you, man, because you're going to get to experience this for the first time in such a great way. It is free to play. It is an awesome game. And Mud's bundle sale is going on right now, I think.
All Mud's bundles 50% off, but all bundles, even non-Mud's, 35% off.
Ooh, look at that.
Beautiful.
I think I might have to get the storyline. I need that cat charm.
You gonna buy the event? Event buyout?
Because I didn't finish the event, but I really need the cat charm.
But
okay,
but like Merrick was saying, being jealous of people who haven't played it yet. Merrick introduced me to this game about a year ago, and as the months went by, and I was just playing on my own, just plodding through the story, enjoying every minute. Merrick got so many PMs from me in all caps, being so excited to see various characters show up.
Various characters show up, various plot lines show up from various episodes of Star Trek. The more you know about Star Trek, the more you were going to... I mean, this game is like a love letter to the fans. The more you know about the episodes, the more you're going to freak out.
It really ties up so many little threads from throughout all of Star Trek. And, obviously, I mean, the Iconian story took this tiny little thread and created such an awesome, unique storyline, which I think was like one of the most impressive storylines I
That
went
was my
through.
Actually,
favorite.
some of the best MMO storyline like development I've ever seen.
I was going to say, not just Star Trek, not just STO, but MMOs in general. We play a ton of MMOs. I've been playing MMOs since EverQuest. I can tell you it's some of the best, most enjoyable story that I've ever played in an MMO, which is saying
the
something, right?
Iconians, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we can wrap up with STO, but before we go, just the last little quote that I wanted to read is from Kurtzman, specifically being asked about bringing back Deep Space Nine as a follow-up show. He said, I'm trying to answer your question without revealing anything. I think you're always having conversations about the history of Star Trek. And obviously, Sisko is a critical figure for everybody. So conversations definitely have to be had. What I'll tell you is that for us, we don't want to just launch into something without going, we have a great new idea. A new reason to do it, a way to turn it into a new direction so that it's not just repeating the thing you've seen before, but it's also honoring the thing that you love. So if we ever go down that road, other than what we've already been doing on Lower Decks, for example, I think we would all want to make sure that it was coming from that place of being able to tell a new story while honoring the old one. So obviously, it's great, right? It's awesome.
I love the way they said that. I cannot agree more. And I think like you don't want to add something that will detract from what's already there.
Well, and that's got to be in his brain, man, because there's people like, listen, Kurtzman has been the architect behind the entire new generation of Star Trek. I don't know if you guys remember what was going on back in Discovery when it was first being made. It almost collapsed. It almost like cannibalized itself. There was drama on the set all over the place. People, like showrunners being changed. All these articles coming out being like, it's being pushed back. We don't even know. It's hemorrhaging money. Like there's disagreement about how to run it. Kurtzman came in, took over. It was crazy. And then when Disco became what it was and Picard became what it was, before Strange New Worlds, there was definitely a big feeling he's a fan of Star Trek, guys. Kurtzman, like whatever you want to say. I mean, I think, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I'm having more and more faith in Kurtzman as we go. But you got to know that he was feeling that sort of dichotomy in the fandom, right? Some people really liking what he was doing. Some people really not thinking that it was honoring the thing that they loved. So it's not like that's new. That's got to be in his brain. And I love to hear him say it. It just feels really good. I feel the same way. I want Deep Space Nine to come back, but if it came back as a pale comparison or even worse, some sort of detriment to the legacy that it left behind, then it would not be worth it. It would be hurtful, and that would suck. So I like to hear that quote. I like to hear where he's at with it. And the other thing that I don't know if you picked out of that quote was about Sisko. Mm-hmm. I think it's a hard sell. I don't think that Avery Brooks is like, remember I said at the beginning, everyone is like super excited to come back and do this stuff. I don't think Avery Brooks is in that. Yeah, I don't think that he's in that same boat. He's got his own stuff, he's a different guy. I don't know if you guys have seen the Captain's documentary, but he's
focusing on other things, right?
Yeah, he's an interesting dude, and he has not made Star Trek the center of his career going forward, right? He's a musician, he's a teacher, he's a professor, he's an incredibly talented man, but I don't know. I think there would have to be talks to try to get Avery Brooks to reprise his role as Ben Sisko. I disagree.
They also have a convenient way to just keep him out if they need to.
There it is. I was going to say I disagree with him though that would be critical. I feel bad for saying it because Sisko is awesome, right? We love Sisko. But do I believe that they could come back and do something with Deep Space Nine with him still off being a prophet? The answer is unequivocally yes. I really believe that it would still be doable. Even with the lack of, God, man, that's what's so hard about it, man. Rene Auberjonois gone, Aaron Eisenberg gone, and Sisko not in there.
Well, I was going to say that's the thing. Like those two characters, Nog and Odo, there were real storylines that could have been gone from that. Like it doesn't have to be like, if we had left Sisko as a prophet, there was the whole Odo storyline that could have been changed, or it could have been revisited, obviously, with the way that ended. And
what they could do, and I absolutely don't want them to, is they could just have Odo played by someone else. He's a shapeshifter, but I would be offended.
Oh, yeah, that would be
that
hard.
Would be tough. That would be really tough.
I mean, Star Trek
wouldn't
does
like
such a good job of like commemorating and honoring the people that have passed. I think that if they did it, because it's not like they have never done that. Of course they've done it. They've done it a bunch of times. There's still new Spock right now, right? Like it's
true.
not
yeah.
it's not like we haven't seen it. And literally, guys, I'm in STO. I'm gonna take the moment. Hold on.
Are you gonna run over there?
I am. I'm in the floor 47 mezzanine. How beautiful is it in here, by the way? There literally are these monuments, right? Look at this monument. You don't have to click on it or anything. It's just beautifully animated and scrolling. These are the people that we have lost. Nichelle Nichols, Leonard Nimoy, Gene Roddenberry, Anton Yelchin, Rene Auberjonois, Majel Barrett, James Doohan, Aaron Eisenberg, DeForest Kelly. It is Nichelle Nichols, who we just lost. It's so sad. They do this better than anyone. I think that they would be able to honor them and have it not feel like it was insulting. I think that would be okay.
I mean, it would be a tough thread.
Yeah, I agree. The monuments are so classy and respectful. Absolutely true. And I think that's a beautiful element. And it speaks so well to STO and the developers, but also just speaks to the fandom that we are all a part of. This is not a normal fandom, guys. This is not Star Wars. This is not anything else. Like there is some sort of beautiful thing that is Star Trek. I think that is so hopeful and so inspirational, so moving and so respectful. And I think that this kind of thing is really seen here in Star Trek more than anywhere else. And I think that I trust them to do it if they were to do it. I think it would be hard, but okay. That's my little rant on that. I think it would be tough, but okay. Do you guys disagree? Would you throw rotten fruit?
No, not necessarily. I think it could be done. I think it could
be done.
Maybe not necessary, if that's not what's a chosen path, but
well, there's precedence for him being gone too.
Yeah.
Right? He went back to the Dominion guys or to the founders. He left. I mean, the story doesn't have to be about that. It really doesn't. So that could be left out too. There are so many things.
Captain Nog will make me forever sad.
Oh, Captain Nog.
That's true. That might be the hardest one because it wasn't wrapped up as like, oh, there's a reason for him not being there.
It is so sad. And for those of you guys who are not aware, there is like an Aaron Eisenberg. There's an Eisenberg class ship in STO. It's one of the greatest regrets of my gaming career that I missed that. I don't have that ship and it's devastating. I want it so badly. I love Aaron Eisenberg. He was a fan of Star Trek Online. He was famous for saying that he was trying to encourage people to play Ferengi. # play a Ferengi. It is totally awesome. He was one of the greatest guys ever. Such a friend of the franchise. Friend to the fans. Rest in peace, everyone that I just listed on that.
In fact, Venwick over there dancing as a Ferengi to your right.
Yeah, Venwick. Let's go, buddy. Any other things to wrap up? Yeah, this is about the time.
I don't know. A DS9 reprisal again would be tough without them, but I would still, like you said, if they can do it well, I would love to see it.
Agreed. I'm with Nana. I think if they did it well.
Janeway.
Live action Janeway, the most practical and probable to see first. She's already back in the machine, right? She's doing Prodigy. I really think that could happen. So
she's on the
look out for that. Too. She's on the what?
The Star Trek cruise.
Oh man, I want to be on the Star Trek cruise.
Dude, I'm going to save it for off stream to tell you guys, but you mentioned the cruise really early on in like a one-off sentence, and I pulled up the list of who's going this year, and I'm really mad that I can't afford it.
I want to go so
all the tickets are
badly.
basically sold out.
Guys, if you guys could all just do us a favor, go get all of your Star Trek friends and tell them about the podcast and have them join the Star Trek Night Shift Discord and blow us up.
Invited to the cruise.
Yes, blow us up, man. Make it huge. And then maybe we could go and meet you guys and go to things like the Star Trek convention in Vegas or the Star Trek cruise. It would be the absolute dream. So we want every Trekkie in the world to be involved in our community. If you're into Trek and you want just people to talk with or share pictures of the cool creations that you've made or just be a part of our watch parties or whatever.
Pretty soon you'll be able to play Dabo.
And we're going to set up Dabo in the Discord very soon.
Revealing a fun Dabo game.
Then get involved, guys. All of the new Star Trek news we're always posting in the Discord, so it's a great place to sort of like, get your Star Trek news. But yeah, there's always something new to talk about, guys, and we will be back every single Saturday to talk about whatever's happening. And that's what's so great, is that there's just so much happening right now. I really appreciate all of the new people that came by today. The raid was phenomenal. I don't even know what to say. That was a big surprise. Really appreciate that. And I hope you got, that was priority 1, right? Priority 1 with the raid?
Yes.
Yes, you were awesome. Big shout out to Chief Jennifer, of course, my beautiful wife in the upper left-hand corner, Science Officer Azure in the bottom right, all of you guys in the chat for interacting with us tonight. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, don't forget, we stream this live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Merrick TV. There'll be a link down below every single week, 9:30 p.m. EST on Twitch. So hopefully you guys can come join us for that, ask questions, pose trivia, whatever it is. We do a lot of fun stuff, so hopefully we'll see you guys soon. I guess that's it. Smash that like button, guys. Subscribe, comment down below, and I guess we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for hanging out with us. Live long and prosper.